Hello listeners and welcome back. In this video we are going to rant about all things within the Breaking Bad universe. So if you have not seen Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, or the Breaking Bad movie, be warned because there are major key spoilers ahead. Also, if you're interested, don't forget to check out our Breaking Bad watch story as it is a wild ride. Now let's jump into it as there is a lot to cover.
When I watched the reels, because I first watched it on Instagram and it said Breaking Bad on the reels on Instagram, and then we ended up watching all of this Breaking Bad stuff waiting for Hank's death that never ended up coming. So when I went back onto the reels, I didn't actually go back on Instagram. I looked them up on YouTube, and the one on YouTube just so happened to say that the Hank's death was from Better Call Saul. So I was like, oh, okay. It's actually from the spin-off series. So we ended up getting that spin-off series and watching a whole 6 seasons just to realize that we just didn't collect the entirety of, the season 5 of Breaking Bad.
I just truly believe that season 4 was the end of it. And imagine that. Imagine we went our whole lives thinking that Breaking Bad just ended with Hank finding out that Walter was Heisenberg, and then it's just boom. That's just how it ends. Because that's genuinely how we believe
that's literally
Breaking Bad ended.
That's how it ended. Season 4 ended for us. And then we just started watching Jesse's movie where he was kidnapped and escaping.
How did he end in Breaking Bad with getting a bag full of cash, and then all of a sudden he's in this movie escaping a kidnapping? It's what happened? We were
there was
so
clearly
confused.
something missing.
But then like you said, because you thought it all came from Better Call Saul, that's when I looked into it and I just got all of the 6 seasons of Better Call Saul because I was just really intrigued to see, especially now after watching Breaking Bad, to see Hank's death. I was really waiting for that. I was just seeing how it was going to occur, because I think you also mentioned that not only did Hank get killed, but Walter was there for it, and I'm that's fucking huge and stuff. So I was really waiting to see that, and then it just never happened.
And you have to remember that Breaking Bad as a show is relatively drawn out and kind of slow. It's something when you're watching it, it feels slow, but when you look back on it, you kind of go, oh, a lot did happen. So we actually watched this really long, drawn out show right before all of the juicy conclusion, just to go watch 6 seasons of Better Call Saul, just to go back to the last season and get all that juicy content that we should have gotten the first time around.
Yeah, if we had watched the watch order normally, we probably never would have stepped in to Better Call Saul. So it's probably good to a degree, in a weird way, that okay, we got the extra story, we got the extra insight, because we probably never would have gone to Better Call Saul if we had finished Breaking Bad normally. We watched 6 seasons of a show that didn't expect any conclusion that was never going to happen.
And that's what kind of ruined Better Call Saul for me personally a little bit, is the fact that I was going into it with the full expectations of seeing the conclusions of Breaking Bad, just to find out that I didn't get anything I was actually going there for.
Yeah, it just wasn't needed. Because we went into the show with the intent of finishing off Breaking Bad, we didn't go into it with the right mindset. So I think that's kind of what broke the series for us a little bit. And then also, it was very slow. And then also the characters. Saul was just not a fucking good character to follow. He was a really, 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 shitty character from day dot. And you just kind of watched him get worse and worse and worse and, destroy people's lives without any remorse.
I reckon they could have made a lot deeper story behind Saul, change from being a good person to a bad. Whereas all they really did in that show was kind of show you that he was a bad person when he was a kid. He continued to be bad when he was growing up. Then he got to a point where he had an opportunity to become really bad, and he decided to just do it with no mercy. So it was he started being bad and ended being really bad, and it's well, what really changed? It was just, that's who Saul was.
Pretty much, if anything, he just got worse as the things went along, because he did everything he could to
justify himself.
Well, justify himself and just not even take responsibility for what he did. He ruined his father's life by stealing from his shop. He ruined Chuck's life by making him feel that he was that insane to where he had no purpose to live. And then he ended up putting Howard in a situation to be killed, but also destroyed his entire legacy and reputation. He completely ripped everything apart that those kind of people were, and had no remorse for it, and did everything he could to blame anybody else. You know, like he didn't believe that he was the one that destroyed his father's shop. He just thought that his father was a failure. He couldn't accept the fact that he pushed Chuck to his death, so he pushed it on Howard instead. And then he couldn't accept the fact that he put Howard in the room to get shot, so he just blamed it on Lalo that he's like a bad guy. And it's like, no, when you really look at it as a whole, it's like you did this. Like you put these people in these positions to lead them to these choices or such. It was just fucking terrible. Yeah, so like justice for Howard.
Yeah, but like when it comes to the show of Better Call Saul, my two favorite people was Nacho. I enjoyed seeing his backstory and like how he kind of got to where he was and how he ended. And then I also liked Howard, obviously. Howard was a really well-written character because when you first meet him, you think he's kind of snobby and tight, and he was pushing Jimmy down and giving him a lot of shit. Then you find out that it was never Howard, it was actually Chuck. And then Howard actually supported and actually wanted Jimmy to succeed, and all Jimmy ever did was basically just told Howard to screw himself. And then Howard comes around at the end there, and all he was trying to do was confront Jimmy to say, you know what, fine, you've won. I get it. All you wanted to do was prove that you were better than everyone. Here you go. You're fucking better than me. And then in that one moment of, you know, Howard being a humble man, gets him fucking killed.
It's really sad, yeah, when Howard kind of gets to the conclusion of like, oh, you were always like this and this is the kind of person that you are. When he finally gets that kind of clarity, he just gets killed, and it's just really sad.
And that scene, man, that scene was really, really good. I remember watching behind the scenes of that specific scene of Howard's death. It was really good coming up to filming, and the dude that actually acted as Saul obviously didn't agree with what Saul was doing.
Jimmy and Kim have been pulling these pranks regarding Howard, and I've been waiting and hoping and wanting there to be consequences for these characters.
And there's no conscience going on, completely missing the point that she deserves it.
So when Howard ended up getting killed, I remember him saying that it was like a huge shock factor. I mean, he actually felt really bad about how his character got Howard's character killed.
Yeah, because he's playing like this character, he kind of felt responsible in a way.
Yeah.
But another really jarring thing about Howard's death that really like stuck with me was where they actually put him. Like, it was really interesting that Howard was killed, and then not only like a few hours after that, Lalo was killed. And then when you see them get put together, buried in the lab that Jesse and Walter work in Breaking Bad, it's really sad to see someone like Howard that has done nothing but good and like genuine his whole life to end up in a hole with someone like Lalo who has done nothing but evil and bad his whole life. The reality of that is just really, really jarring and really, really sad.
Because you know it's a very fitting place for Cartel Guy to be, but it's not where Howard, it's not what he deserved it or where he should have ended up. Knowing that makes going back to the show of Breaking Bad and rewatching it a little deeper, because whenever you're watching Jesse and Walter work in that lab for Gus, Howard and Lalo are actually in the foundation that they're working on.
It's kind of like cool and creepy at the same way, because it's like you end up realizing that these characters were actually with you the whole time, and then it's also just really creepy to know that they're just like buried in that foundation. I do want to talk about Nacho a little bit because I really loved his character as well, and his story was like really, really sad, and everything with his father and just how he kind of got caught up in the cartels and got stuck between the two of them and was kind of made this guinea pig to work for both and couldn't really find like a good way out. As sad as it was, obviously, you could kind of see coming up to it that he was going to get killed, and I just really liked the way that he did it. Like, even though he played into Gus's hand and kind of went with the story that, like, you know, oh, I was approached by this extra cartel, blah, 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 spy on both of you and like whatever, he still kind of did it in his own way. Like, he was able to say his piece to like Hector. He got to say his piece about that and the pills, and then he was able to like actually kill himself, which was just, it was just brilliant. Like, it was sad, but it was just really, really brilliant.
He went out on his own terms. It was really nice to see for that character.
Massive respect for that. Yeah.
When you are sitting in your shitty nursing home tonight for the rest of your life, you think of me, you twisted fuck.
We've gone over Better Call Saul. We should say a little bit about Breaking Bad. The thing that I found interesting about Breaking Bad, I didn't realize the amount of hate that was on Skylar when it came to Breaking Bad. I mean, like, she wasn't my favorite character, but then I also didn't like immediately hate her like everyone seems to.
My name is Skylar White, yo. My husband is Walter White, yo.
Walter's backstory is quite interesting. the foundation of where he came from and like why he was kind of led to do what he did was really interesting, coming from his college years with starting this company and then slowly being pushed out and then it going on to being like this $1 billion company, and then he's just this average school teacher living in an average neighborhood. And even though he knows that he has the potential of being so much more and should have been so much more alongside them, it doesn't justify what he did, but you have understanding for where he's coming from, because if you were in that situation and something like that had happened to you, you'd never get over something like that. It would just eat you alive for the rest of your life.
The fact that he sold his shares to $1 billion company for only $5,000 would eat you up inside to some degree. And it makes sense that that kind of lingering feeling within him pushes him to do the things that he does when he's in the drug world. He knows he is a 100 billionaire type guy. He created a company that was worth more than anyone else can even fathom, so that he had that kind of value in himself. So when, he was doing all this stuff in Breaking Bad, that was the attitude he was coming into it with. Like, I'm not a low level person. I'm a fucking billionaire. Like, I'm supposed to be the guy on the top, not the guy at the bottom. So it was really interesting to see his attitude throughout the show.
Say my name. Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
Yeah, like that's the reason that he didn't stop every time he made like a new leg up in the drug world. That's why like after he found the biggest guy in the neighborhood, he then needed to take down the biggest guy in the county, and then he needed to take down like biggest drug lords in the area. He didn't stop. He needed to be above Gus and better than Gus and stuff like that. And I think it led back to where his values kind of like stemmed from, because he didn't take the opportunity when he was younger. He knew that he was the best meth dealer in this area, so he did everything he could to be sure that he was the best, and he succeeded. He actually fucking did it. He took down literally everyone in that area and then died himself.
I also enjoyed Jesse's story in Breaking Bad. I thought his development was actually really, really good, especially when you go all the way to the end of his movie. I think his development as a character is phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed that.
And it was just a good ending. Jesse wasn't, he made some mistakes and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, he was still just a good person, and he was still just a kid, and it was good. He deserved to get out and have a fresh start and just move on, which is what he was able to do. And that was like, and he was one of the few that was able to do that, because pretty much everyone you follow in Breaking Bad dies at some point, some way. I think like the last thing that I really like touch on would be like Hank's death and stuff like that. That was a really big moment for me, because it wasn't as big as I wanted it to be when I finally saw it, because like, I knew about it, and then we had that whole mix up of taking the break and having to come back to it because we watched Better Call Saul and like everything, but it was still jarring to see because it was quite an intense moment within the series, and it really did ruin everything, ruin his entire family. But that's why when he goes back to Skylar in the end, it helps, because he finally admits to Skylar like why he did this and that he did it for himself, and he gives the coordinations of Hank and stuff like that. And because it doesn't change anything, but at least it helps give a little bit of that closure.
All I have to give you is this. Those numbers are GPS coordinates.
What?
A burial site. That's where they'll find Hank and Steve Gomez.
Well, that's all for our thoughts and opinions on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Did you agree or disagree with us? And what are some of your thoughts and opinions of the shows? And let me know if there is anything Breaking Bad related you want me to cover next. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Feel free to leave all your thoughts and comments below. Thanks for listening.